Okay, welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Our lecture today is going to compare the two armies fighting the American Revolution, the Patriot or Continental Army and Great Britain, also known as the Redcoats. So what we're going to do is just look at the two forces and look at their strengths and look at their weaknesses with the overall goal of using these strengths and weaknesses to make a conclusion about why did one side win and one side lose. We're going to start with the Patriots, the Continentals. Most of the colonists, because they grew up on the frontier or out in the woods, they owned their own rifles. And from hunting, they were excellent shots. They could actually hit what they were aiming at, which is always good in war. The Patriots had probably the best leader of the entire war, General George Washington. And General Washington, of course, would go on to become our first president after the war was over. Because the entire Revolutionary War was fought in the 13 colonies, they were fighting to defend their homes and fighting to defend their property, which gave them a stronger motivation. They were protecting what was important to them. Since they were fighting on their own land, they knew their way around. They had been there for many, many years, and that helped them with ambushing and moving around from place to place. And probably the biggest, towards the end of the war, the Patriots got some help. And they got some help from other countries. And the most important country to help them was France. And remember, France was the arch enemy of Great Britain. And when they came to help us out, it was a definite advantage. So that was the Patriot strengths, the things that they had going for them. But they also had many weaknesses. The biggest weakness they had is that they were poorly trained, especially at the beginning of the war. And the reason is that their soldiers were not professional full-time soldiers, but they were what we would call amateur soldiers, part-time soldiers, a militia. Never had a lot of supplies in the Patriot Army. They were always scrounging for guns and weapons and uniforms. A lot of times guys went into battle without even wearing shoes. Many colonists didn't want to serve in the army for a very long time, and they only wanted to stay close to home. They didn't want to travel far from home. They wanted to stay close to their homes and their families. When it comes to Navy, it's pretty easy with the Patriots. They didn't have one. They didn't have any ships that were capable of fighting on sea. And the colonies are very long and skinny. We looked at those before. So since they were so spread out, it was hard to travel from place to place and hard to get to battles that would often be very far away, long distances to travel, not a lot of roads to get there. So those are the Patriot strengths, the Patriot weaknesses. We're going to compare those with Great Britain. Great Britain, the Redcoats, are very well trained. They're very organized. They have a professional army. Their army had been fighting many battles, and the soldiers basically knew what they were doing. Compared to our no navy, Great Britain had the best navy in the world. They had been fighting at sea for centuries, and they defeated France, they defeated Spain. They were the best navy on earth. And all of this experience really paid off. They knew how to fight a battle, they knew how to win a war, and they knew what they were doing basically. Because they had so much money and effort devoted to warfare, they had a lot of high quality weapons. They had lots of cannons, lots of ships. They had a musket called the Brown Bess that was a very high-tech weapon for its time. And at home, they had support, but they also had support in the 13 colonies. They had many loyalists who were on the side of Great Britain and wanted to see Great Britain defeat the Patriots. Those are the strengths of the Redcoats, but they also had weaknesses. One of the biggest weakness was that they were fighting far from home, 3,000 miles away across the ocean. It took a long time to send supplies. And Great Britain was busy fighting a lot of different people, not just the 13 colonies, so they didn't send their best generals. they sent what I would call their B+ generals, and the A generals were fighting elsewhere. They did face a population in the 13 colonies that was mostly against them. It was made up of more patriots than loyalists, and more people who wanted to see Great Britain lose. To help them out, they also relied on a lot of paid mercenaries. A mercenary is a soldier who fights for money, and because of that, they're not often as dependable as soldiers who are fighting for other reasons. And probably their last big weakness had to do with their leadership. Their generals, the king, they were very overconfident, they were very arrogant, they didn't expect to lose this war, and they weren't really prepared when Washington and the Patriots put up such a strong fight. So that's just a quick rundown on the two sides. Remember, we're going to try and make the ultimate conclusion. How come the United States won the war? How come Great Britain was defeated? And did Chuck Norris really have a role in the American Revolution? Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.